I completely forgot to film an intro for Feed the Trolls. So I'm back a few hours later because I need to edit doing that intro. Apologies, there's going to be a bit of a lighting change very soon. In this episode, we're talking about the addition of Dust2 to the competitive map pool. We get really nerdy about Counter-Strike. Thorin is with us, and we're joined by STYKO, who is fresh off a plane from ESL Challenger Melbourne. I actually recorded this like 5 times, and for some reason I couldn't say ESL Challenger. Go figure. Fresh off a plane, and also fresh off leaving Apex. He posted a video about it a few hours ago. By the time you watch this, it'll probably be old news, but I'll put a link somewhere. But he chats to us a little bit about what he thinks from a competitive player perspective. You can check it all out in this episode. Let's go. STYKO's here, Thorin's here, and we're about to start Feed the Trolls. I'm going to kind of waste a little bit of your time to begin because I have the story that I want to share. So a couple of years ago, my brother and I got it in our head that we wanted to go to New York City, but we were like both straight out of university, super poor, had no money. So we sat down and we thought we had these big brains, and we figured out this way to like kind of make this trip as cheap as possible. And we found this hotel that was right near Times Square, pretty like mid hotel, but it had a breakfast buffet included in the price. So our big brains were like, we'll book into this hotel. Every day we'll go down to breakfast and we will just eat as much as we possibly can, because if we do that, then we don't have to eat for the rest of the day. We only have to buy dinner. We're going to save all of this money. And the first day arrives, we get down to the buffet, and we didn't realize that this hotel was like sort of catering to a very specific like middle America family type vibe. And all that was available was Cheerio cereal, waffles, and then powdered eggs. The only protein supply was these powdered eggs. And I mean, there's no real protein in there, no nutritional value. It's basically cement in your stomach. And I remember at the time seeing this and having this moment of obviously like disappointment, but then also just going, well, this is life. Like, this is what we're now going to deal with. And that's kind of how I felt about Dust2 coming back into the competitive pool. To me, Dust2 is the powdered eggs. We're going to have to eat it. It is what it is, but it's kind of meh. So I'm curious, STYKO, we'll jump in and start with you. When you heard that Dust2 is coming back, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I was, first of all, like in a starvation mode of something new in Counter-Strike when it comes to map pool. So even these bland eggs, they are kind of salvation for me, even though it's like you said, it's just Dust2 back into the pool, and there's very, very little going to change. At the same time, I'm hopeful that by the time it was removed, which was 2017, I think Counter-Strike developed a lot in sense of like theory crafting and how we are supposed to play, that even things like Dust2 are actually going to be able to bring us something new. So maybe I'm naive, but naive in a good sense.
Such a like positive outlook there, Thorin, because I feel like the rest of the internet, the moment they heard this, everyone was just like, what the hell is happening? What was I actually know your reaction. We all saw it on X, but I'm curious how you felt that initial first thought that went through your brain.
The main problem with this whole topic, even though I don't want to make it too much of like a zoom out initial scenario, is I know that Valve, I've even met the Valve devs, they know nothing about the competitive scene. Like every pro meets them. If STYKO goes to the next major, not likely now, but let's say he does. If he goes to the next major, if you like, sometimes you can meet a Valve dev, right? Here's what y'all never do who are pros. Just say to them something like, oh, who do you think is going to win this game when like a match? They won't even know who's playing, mate. They know nothing. So as a result, they don't balance the game based on the pro scene. They're not sitting around like we are going, oh, but is the game too T-sided now? And what's going to happen? Like, aren't there too many fragging maps? Like all the things that I'm going to say in this episode, they wouldn't even know what that means. They just think it's a cool map, and they do cater to people who play casual. They play to people who play Premier and matchmaking and all that jazz. So the main problem I have here is this. If you want to go with narrative or story building, Dust2 is the iconic Counter-Strike map. It's actually why I will say I thought it was kind of wild they ever removed it from the competitive map pool. I would have thought this is the most obvious map. You just rework and bring it back, because like in the same way as if you're really old school, the original Dust was the one everyone played on public servers. This is probably the most played map in the history of Counter-Strike. Every idiot on a public server is playing it. The joke is in like 1.6, there's still people playing it in India right now in like a 16 versus 16 nightmare server where you load in and it has like a Mortal Kombat sound and all like 40 megabyte download at the beginning of the game if you don't know that server setting. So I understand why it came back. It's because if you Valve, it's like, why wouldn't we bring it back? Like, it's the map, isn't it? The problem is it just doesn't really fit in the modern day of competitive Counter-Strike, because we live in a world where Astralis did exist, where you use utility and you have to actually have tactics. And you can't anymore, even though we all remember it fondly, just go NiKo shocks, just go up middle and kill everyone on your own. Like, that's a beautiful idea, but it doesn't exist anymore. And I will say this as well. People always do forget the problem with Counter-Strike maps, and this is a key point to make, is the architecture isn't the most relevant detail. It's actually how teams competitively play it and then what the utility usage is. So the downside is the architecture looks like the old Dust2 from CS 1.6, but I can tell you cannot play it like the old version. And it doesn't even play like the original Dust2 in CS4. Like the rework I actually thought was just bad. I will admit the old map never would have kept in the map pool. So it did just become a bad map. The one positive I see is this, the one positive, which is there does still seem on this map, you can never quite stamp it out. There does seem to be individual capacity to carry, though. I mean, I always thought the most obvious example that showed it isn't just a brainless map is this was Big Clan's favorite map. That's like one of the most tactical teams of all time. And to be fair, it's because if you had the AWPer like Sirison, he's going to pop off. That is the map where you can still dance around and get all the kills. So, like, in some ways, the nostalgic part of me, the romance says, oh, brilliant to see Dust2 back. I hope this means NiKo's going to be better in G2. But the problem also, I'll just shade this in here, I'm sure we'll get to it later, is obviously we're in some like Full Metal Alchemist world, aren't we? To get one thing, you have to exchange it for another. And the problem is, Overpass is what we exchanged it for. That's like if at that breakfast buffet they at least had like, you know, some like delicious donuts or something, and then someone just took that away and just gave you like plain crackers. It's like, oh, brilliant, man. That was nothing, is there? Got nothing at this point in time. And also, I'll just say this as well, before anyone dares tell me yet there aren't tactics on Dust2, it's all played out, can I introduce you to a map called DE_Vertigo?
He just dropped the mic, right? Yeah, at the start. There it is. It was actually my next question, so we'll get straight into it. The idea that we're dropping Overpass for this as well. That to me was kind of the shocker, I have to say. And I mean, Thorin, you touched on it there, but there was a part of me that went, what WTF are we doing here? Why this particular map?
I mean, I'll just say this, right? First of all, this is where you have to learn in the pro scene what people's biases are, and then you'll understand their comments. So famously, back in the day, if you ever looked on the Twitter, all the players whose perma was the map removed was like, excellent move, very well, this is the right move. And then all the teams who were like studs on it were like, what the hell? This is just wrong, man. It's fundamentally wrong. So all I'll say is this, I love NiKo. I told him this back in the day in 2016, we tried talking shit to me. I love what he can do with his wrist. Don't really give a monkeys about what comes out of his mouth, right? So when he was sort of like, finally, Overpass is gone, all I'll say is his own in-game leader cried about it going, because guess what? People who just shoot people in the head, they might not like Overpass too much. People who like tactics and tactical play and push-pull dynamics, they love Overpass. So my biggest problem here is, I hinted at it before, you're not just bringing like potentially a fragging map back, which by the way, half the map pool is fragging maps. I mean, you could even argue, people have to make the point, Mirage and Itch are almost the same map. It's like the same architecture. So not only that, but you've diminished the tactical play. There's a reason why Virtus Pro and Device were probably crying into their pillow when this change was made. Like, this was a map where if you like the sort of chess game of Counter-Strike, I always thought Overpass was it. It's why I actually think, again, just banging on old Bosnian breadhead, I do think that saying it's a shit map is sort of telling on yourself there, mate. You're sort of telling me what you want, basically. That's like if I was like, oh, my girlfriend's like just got her degree, you know, she's actually like trying to like build her own business, and you were like, yeah, but is her ass huge though? Does she have that dump truck though? It's like, mate, you sort of telling on yourself here, you know, like I was trying to tell you something beautiful. You've made it all profane, NiKo. It's where that was just like a secret backhanded way of just bashing NiKo for 5 minutes. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That's what I have to say.
Nicely done. I mean, STYKO, how are you feeling about the fact that Overpass is gone?
Well, I was surprised. I honestly did not expect it at all. I think there are much better maps to remove, and this is, I'm talking from the point of view of a viewer, of a caster, of an analyst, and then a pro player. This is the obvious answer, but I want to delve a little bit deeper because I don't know the stats, how Valve are actually treating the casual player base and what is the percentages being like there as a map shift, because Overpass maybe sounds like one of the least played maps, because as Thorin said, like Dust2 is being brought back namely because of the narrative building and because every Counter-Strike fan ever loves it and knows it. Even if I talk to someone who doesn't even touch PC games for years and he's like 35, 40 years old, like he used to play 1.6 internet cafes, and only thing that they played was Dust 2. So obviously now they're going to maybe tune into the major, because 20 years ago they used to play that map in internet cafe with the friends. So now the third map of a major is going to be Dust 2. Obviously I'm going to watch it, and obviously I already know the map compared to stuff like Vertigo, where it's just mess, and it's you have to kind of figure out not only where you're looking, but there's a smoke in front of you, smoke on the right of you, and then you have to figure out where you are. So I know that for casual like viewers which are not into the CS that much, it might be really painful to watch and really painful to understand what is going on. So I, from the standpoint of Valve, understand why Overpass was removed, although I'm not a big fan of it because I think there were better candidates. But at the same time, I cannot like really go into details because I don't know the numbers, how often people play on Premiere or matchmaking or casual servers. It's just way beyond my scope. But
I mean, one thing you could speak to, though, STYKO, is obviously as a pro, you play Face It, and famously, this was the map on Face It. Like, the joke is, the only reason Mirage became the map is because Dust2 went out, right? It used to be the one that was always vetoed towards.
Exactly. Like Mirage became the new Dust2, and for the sole reason of it being, well, in a map pool for so long. And the second one is very easy to look at. Like, it's really easy to understand that there is a way, and there's clearly you can go. So for viewers as well that are new to the game, that are usually generating those numbers during the high profile tournaments like majors, because most of them obviously only tune for those are the casual players that barely gonna watch CS any other part of the year, and obviously those need to be catered to the most, so they maybe pick up the game themselves, or they try to come back and watch it again because it's easy to watch, it's easy to understand. I don't know, it might be one of the reasons. But yeah, Mirage is basically now new Dust 2, and I wonder how it's going to split now between like even games like on Face It. What is going to be the map? I suspect it's going to be Dust 2 again, but might be wrong.
It's curious that you said that, though, because I mean, we mentioned earlier on that maybe the Valve devs don't really understand the competitive scene per se. But I mean, is that really? I'm a casual noob. All my friends, they play Dust 2. That's their favorite. But I don't know if they're going to start watching the major because of it. Most of them watch it anyway because they love watching top-level Counter-Strike. I don't know if the fact that maybe once in a while they get to see their favorite map played is going to bring in more viewers. I don't know if that's really going to be the driving force, and if that was the driving force behind the decision, Thorin. Though, to be honest, we don't actually know why they decided this. We could debate it forever. It's just one of those random calls, right?
No, Valve intentionally act like some sort of godlike figure who just moves in mysterious ways. It's like when they elect the Pope, like they just go into a room and convene for a while, and then when the right smoke comes out, a new map is just put in the pool, and there's like, all right. And then here's the problem. Because it's so mysterious, we all scramble to find meaning in this existential world. So what people do is they say, I think at the last major, it was the least picked, like, as though Valve's looking, right, on HLTV at, like, least picked map major. Right, remove that one. Like, and also the joke would be, if you actually were doing it for purely cynical reasons, like, especially if you want to pump up the major, the real joke is you should actually go full WWE. You should essentially just make whatever Na'Vi and FaZe's map pool is just as good as possible. They have all the fans in the world. Like, they have all the casuals and the pro fans. So I think the problem is overall, I would say this is why it's a weird addition. Aside from history and nostalgia, I just don't know what the selling point is. I mean, it's even why the way they announced this was so weird. I actually saw, I think it was Hawker did a video where he saw the update drop, but he just saw the top part, and it was all that like nonsense about the fucking left-hand peak instead. And then they just slipped in at the end, like, by the way, Overpass out, just stay back in. It's all like, whoa, that's the story. Like, that's like when those politicians do something at, like, 4:59 p.m. on a Friday because they know everyone's just about to just fucking clock off work, and they can just get like avoid all the drama. It's like, that's the weirdest thing. I just wish, even though I do like that Valve stays hands off the pro scene aside from this, I just wish that they actually took, for once, the only time you'll ever hear me say this, a page out of Riot's book, which is when Riot buffs or nerfs something, they actually give a reason. It might not be the reason, but they'll sort of try to explain, this power was overtuned, or this person was never being used. If you actually, by the way, even if it was that you just echoed what the fans speculated, like, and we just didn't think in pro level play, people understood it and it was not being picked. Hey, at least then we kind of know the rationale. Then also as a scene, we could rig it so Vertigo could go out. We just don't have to play the map. It's all good.
I also have for the Dust2 that this is actually, like, this is a little bit nerdy, but you invited me on the podcast, so you need to expect some nerdy trivia here. But I actually saw from, I think it was interview with the creator of Dust2, I think his name is David Johnson, that
sure.
Yeah, he actually said that there's like a huge psychological factor coming into Dust2 that is so pleasurable for viewers and players to play the map. So this might be reason drive factors to maybe watch it a little bit more or play it. Is that actually if you follow the roads that are on the map, it will always lead you to A side or B sides. So even if you like spawn on T spawn, one road is divided to the left and one to the right. They all end at the bomb side, and then the bomb side is connected with the road as well. So it's kind of really easy to follow where you should go in order to kind of get to the objective of the map. Whereas this is like kind of very easy to pick up because players then tend to know the map much quicker, and maybe that's the reason why it became popular in the first place. And the same, now I'm then thinking about it, the same thing happened on Dust1 actually, all the way back in CS 1.6 public servers. Like there was this little like texture of road going around the map, and if you really think about it, it's actually helping you to get to the place where you need to go.
Well, it's just the yellow brick road from fucking Wizard of Oz. So what are you talking about?
I love it though, because it is, I mean, it is the map that you learn to play Counter-Strike on. That's the first one you jump on. But the problem is the people that we're watching, they can play this game. STYKO, you know how to play Counter-Strike now. So for you, this is just, it's just another day in the office. And for me, I want to see more high-level play. I want to see strategy. I would argue we're maybe not going to see as much of that. I mean, I know Thorin disagrees, but STYKO, how do you think that this is going to adjust the pro scene? Is there going to be a big change in the style of play on this map?
So you have to come into the narrative and context of that when the map was removed. I think it was 2017, at the beginning of 2017, that it got removed from active map pool. And you have to think about how vastly differently the Counter-Strike was being played back then, and how puggy everything was, and how there was barely any structure. Obviously, there were strats and setups, but there was like no big picture plan around the map being made. And right now, I think this is basically how Counter-Strike is being played.
Just got a quick answer to the door. Keep going.
Yeah, of course.
Keep going.
So for me, it's right now you have setups, you have deep playbooks, you have something on CD side, T side that you call every single round. So obviously the things are going to change. How you're going to change, how you're going to take long control as a CT, it's going to change how B player needs to play the round. And this was not really happening back in 2017 where everyone was just kind of on their own on their spot and they're trying to do their best. So there was no like big connection. So I think that there's going to be the meta shift or like the changes. How are we going to get the map played on top level? And obviously the new mechanics with CS2, I think is going to actually affect a little bit what strats are possible, not possible, what are viable strategies, and so on.
Do you want a full-on doomer narrative here, Tech Girl? Do you want me to give you the real darkest that people haven't thought? Here's what people haven't thought about. Like STYKO says, it was years ago this map was in the pool. Here's the immediate thing I'm thinking of. Why does everyone hate Inferno now? Probably the best map ever in Counter-Strike, by the way, because everyone saves all the time on CT side when they locked out the site. STYKO knows this. The literal meta of Dust2 was you do retakes. You actually give up the sites, both of them, and retake them. So if there really is in MR12, like the CT economy is just wrecked in the first half of the game, and then the T's do, this is where it sucks on Inferno. It's not that like, this is what people don't understand. It's not that like T's win too many rounds. It's that they get 2 kills on a site and there's no round left. There is no counterplay. There is no, what happens if Ziwu and someone pushes in and then wins the 2v4? They're not going to do that. They're going to save. So unfortunately, I'm really worried about that. I'm really scared that like we have a world where once they get the kill on the guy at the platform in B, you're just not going there. You're just pulling off if you haven't got all your guns. On the A site, if you drop down and the guy pushes up long A's CT and they come through catwalk, you just have to give it up if you don't get that first AWP kill. That's what would really kill Counter-Strike for me, because Counter-Strike at the end of the day, the meat and potatoes is 5v5 gun rounds. You want to see them play out like the most epic moments of clutch, right? If you don't get the clutch scenario, I think you're going to get kind of like blue ball scenario. You're never going to fully actually feel satisfied in the game. You're just going to get the initial tease and then it's like reset, wait another round, see if we can do it again. So I think that actually is the thing that I'm most scared about.
So MR12 and current economy can definitely help being Dust2 really, really bad, because stuff like double op setups, you're just not going to pull them off. And this is Dust2 is a prime example where this is completely viable on CD side. So you're going to give up side, and B side is unretakeable with the current smokes. They last longer, they're bigger. Yep. You can break them with an HEs, but that's about it. So once you get B side with a clean kill, there's no real reason for CTs to even attempt the retake. For A side is a little bit different, but I really, really hate how Dust2 might struggle just because of the MR12 and economy.
This is my thing though, because we were talking earlier about how this is a way for like casual viewers to get more involved. They'll want to watch, but are they going to want to watch when it's boring as all hell if this map comes up?
I think already that's an area where actually pros don't realize their interests aren't aligned with the viewer. Like I always say, in the game, and just like the pro scene, you need to have incentives for what you want to happen. Essentially, you need to like reward people the things you want and punish them for the things you don't. Well, the problem is most of the time saving is actually like economically and efficiency wise the correct play. So if you're pros, you're supposed to just win this game. You're not supposed to care what it looks like. You're supposed to win the tournament, get the prize money, get the money for your org, like justify your salary. But the problem is, I would say we almost need the scene to be more like UFC, where you get the big bonus if you do the knockout and have the fight of the night. So you go for it. You don't play super conservatively. And so the issue is, I think fans are bored to death by saves. I mean, I think oftentimes the worst thing about them is you don't ever do saves in pogs. Like in a pug, maybe at like FPL they do it if like you need to do it because someone on your team cares about the game. But like the actual thing about a casual game is you always go for the 1v3 and the 1v4 and the 1v2. And even if you have low guns, because you're just playing for fun, aren't you? It's the difference between playing for fun and trying to just grind out a match. So I think this is a rare example also where I wish actually pros could have feedback to Valve in the sense, not that Valve has to do what they say, but I think this is where like pros could explain to them essentially like, look, we are cynically just going to abuse this fact that you just have to save all the time, and it means you're just not going to get the rounds you want. So that could even mean bring the map back, but maybe you need to do something like maybe you need to open the skybox so counter flashes can come in better. Maybe like STYKO says, maybe you need the doors to be taller so the smoke could be like boosted over or something. Because I agree also, that's the part people haven't thought about. The CS2 smokes are going to be so powerful once the T's take the site. Like I just don't like, what counter utility is there to that? Yeah, you can poke holes in the smoke a little bit, but that's not going to work to like retake a whole site. So I'm actually quite worried about this. I actually think for real, it's not just a bad map pool, but like this, people are thinking this is going to be the action map, and I don't even know if it'll have any action.
STYKO, you're agreeing with Duncan there?
I think generally yes. I think only thing that we didn't really touch upon, and that this is something that I just came to a conclusion, is that players who are actually playing Scout good can be really boosted by the fact that Dust2 is back, because you almost always, even if you're force buying and you have really low buy-in pistols, on the Oper, you probably want to have Scout. And there's no other map in the map pool where you really do it, especially right now when Overpass was removed. On CD side Overpass, you might want to have a Scout on an Oper on the second round, even if you lose pistol. But on Dust2, it's almost a must. And right now, like 5 minutes ago, I spoke about double AWP setup, but what could be more viable is to have AWP on an Oper, and then if you want to really have double AWP setup, you kind of go for like a Scout on a second guy. So it even saves up more money because that's cheaper than an M4. So it kind of creates like a, way to play around this. But that's why Thorin in the beginning of the interview said that DIG was one of the best teams on the map.
Oh, of course, Searson, yeah.
Not only tactically, but Searson is the best scout player there is, like statistically speaking. He always hits those headshots, he always gets those tags, and he was just so powerful at tagging people up that people just finish up the rounds. And this is something that I never thought about. So I think like Zaivu, Monesi, they're going to be incredibly powerful when it comes to scout.
So there we go. Big. You've mentioned a Vitality at G2. Who else is happy about this, STYKO, when they look at that? When they look at the addition, what other teams do you think benefit from Dust2 coming in?
I have a little PTSD here, but I'm going to name probably every CIS team, because there was a rule for many years that if you play open qualifiers and you're playing against even randoms from CIS, you never want to play Dust2 because that's the only map they play. So I'm going to always favor those. I think that's incredibly powerful map for pure aimers and even people like Dong that like they're never gonna miss. Whenever they shoot, they have like insane accuracy. These teams are going to have a generally pretty good time. So firepower teams are going to be even more buffed. But this is what I'm thinking on the paper. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be proved wrong. And the fact that there's open skyboxes and suddenly you can get utility going from point A to point B very effectively, efficiently. There are also right now like huge interested in instant lineups. So whenever you spawn, you already have a lineup to, let's say, smoke long door as a CT as soon as you like strafe out of the buy zone. So all these things are going to impact and try to negate that firepower that some teams actually have, and some teams are going to prefer more tactical aspects. So I think it's going to be really interesting. But these teams, I think, would benefit them generally.
Thorin, CIS teams as well for you?
I mean, in some sense, like the obvious one for me is the only one that I think probably it stands against is VP, because first of all, they loved Overpass, and then also that style that Jane plays wasn't really like a Dust2 style traditionally, especially because remember, I don't know actually how they reworked it now, but remember they'd even blocked off the T AWP peak, so you couldn't even do the snipe that someone like Jane would do. I would say the obvious people, actually, this is where even CS pro players don't like analyze the game. They just go off their own biases. I think everyone who used to love Dust2 before. So first of all, loads of NA teams as well. Like I could see like Complexity and Team Liquid picking this up immediately and forcing it in again. I think maybe someone even like FaZe Clan, if they want to like update their pool a little bit, they were always kind of like good on Overpass, but never that good. I could see their players just being brilliant in all the post-plat situations. Has been fantastic for them. I also think someone like Brokey, you can choose the range you take the optials at on this map. It's not like Overpass in the Simpsons. I think he could be even more dynamic. I think an obvious one, since they're on the down to Furia, maybe. I could see that being a map where some of their players like to play the style of player. And then I'll just give one last one because it just seems obvious to me, which is I actually think Eternal Fire, this would probably be an excellent map for them. I could actually see this being one where it's a little bit more simplistic, but you just use those aimers, you just rush on the site and get there. Zantares 2K opening up an A site, etc. I could see that immediately. Woxic and Wicadia. So I think everyone who likes a bit of fragging and a little bit more of the loose up-tempo style, I think it's an excellent addition for them. Obviously, you've already seen on Twitter, the people who want to play the slow, boring CS, they're the ones who loved Overpass. They're the ones who are going to be sad, I'm afraid.
Virtus Pro, of course, when we talk about long, boring CS, that's normally the name that comes up, but it was big brain CS. So I know a lot of people are saying that this is a negative effect for them. They've obviously made this big roster change now. There's clearly a focus that they're trying to get their major at the end of the year. For me, STYKO, is this an opportunity, though, for Jame? It might not be his style of play, but for how long have we been talking about big brain Jame, and he's got all these strategies and he's a chess master when it comes to the game? This is now his opportunity to show that he's not a one-trick pony, right? So maybe this could be the VP rise. Is that team able to adjust to this change?
Oh, I think VP is in a tricky position, especially even before the change was announced, when they got electronic, because I feel like right now they almost have to get a trophy in this year at least, and maybe even two, because right now the names that are on the roster are it's absurd, and the money they invested into the transfer as well, reportedly. So all these things play in a role, and now they got maybe a blessing in disguise of Dust2 coming back, Overpass out. I understand Overpass was one of their maps where they were merchants, but Dust2 is clearly going to be still somewhere where electronic is going to shine a lot, and turret opers such as Device and Jame for that matter, and passive oping CT side is going to take a lot of credit for their playstyle. Obviously, whether it's going to be enough, I don't know, but VP should make this their home turf if they're looking to break into teams that are contending for trophies, because right now I don't see them doing it. With Electronic, they should be able to do it, and with Dust2 being their home map where they just can get wins off of anyone, that's almost a must.
It will be a must. But now we've mentioned, I mean, obviously VP, the overpass change was a big effect for them. Other teams, though, for you, STYKO, when you think about who might be feeling a little bit hard done by with Overpass leaving?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like there were some teams that had a really good Overpass in general, or really bad Overpass, but I never knew like a team that was clearly this was the map that they're just going to pick 24/7 and win. So Overpass was very like versatile when it comes to how you want to play, how you want to approach it, both on CT and T sides. So VP had this style when they were just hitting B constantly, for example, all the time, and they were winning only the easy rounds, or like so-called easy rounds on A side to balance things out, so it doesn't become too obvious. So every gun round they end towards B, and then every anti-eco they would go towards A and somehow scrambled around there. So they were really abusing one set of like side of the map, and if I think about it more, I think there are teams that, even they were good on an Overpass, I can clearly see them being like okay with Dust2. So I'm not going to say that anyone got hurt. It might be just general bias, but players might hate the map, so those guys are going to be more happy with the change.
So Thorin, for the fans, I mean, if we go off what STYKO's saying, a lot of fans, they don't need to worry too much. It's not like they're going to see their teams drop off. Do you think that that's kind of the consensus?
I mean, the funny thing is, the one team I actually think this would have destroyed the map pool of was Cloud9, but Electronic already destroyed them anyway, so it doesn't matter at this point in time. Like, actually, that was one of the few maps they could sort of rely on. So I think the difference is the Astralises, the VPs, in general, most of these teams will adapt. I mean, I even joked earlier that like Huxley didn't like this going up the map pool, but I'm pretty sure Nico and Monacy do. So I think there's a world where most of the teams like the finest, and also counterintuitively, because actually CS2, you could argue, was already struggled a little bit with certain things. Like it is kind of T-sided game. The AAK is incredibly powerful. It's very cheap. There's not that many rounds on a half, etc. I would say actually a lot of teams right now rely on fragging anyway. In fact, you notice a lot of the roster moves seem to just be stacking fraggers. So I think to some degree, most people already had pivoted, so they'll be somewhat safe. I don't think it'll crush any team. I don't think there's any actual true contender this will stop winning a tournament, for example.
So the biggest sort of feedback, if you were online when this decision was made, is that this is now the worst map pool of all time.
Oh, it's terrible.
That's what everyone's throwing out. So do we agree with that statement if we decided that this is actually the worst map pool leading into this first year of competitive CS2?
By the way, I'll just make a joke I was going to make before, but I just politely, because it's not my show, I allowed everyone else to talk instead of interrupting and doing all my straight fire shit. So when you said earlier that James like the chess master, he is, but the problem is he's like that old school one called like Petrosian or something who like played for a draw every time. And so that's actually the worst possible chess to watch, like anti-chess. That's a straight fire reference. If people know, go look up the 1960s. So what I would say is this: the reason why this is the worst map pool ever, instead of making another 1 hour episode where we explain it, just go to NAF Twitter, and he did the tweet that in an image, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. He just did the tweet of the map pool when they took Dust2 out, I think it was, when it was like, mate, you look at this now, it's like the most vintage. Oh, it's primo. It's like cobblestone, you know, overpass, train, nuke, mirage. It's like you even just see that image and you just want to like hop in a time machine and go back there and play that map pool today. So the real problem, I think, is this. I think it's just the straw that broke the camel's back. It was already a pretty bad map pool anyway. I mean, we simultaneously had 3 maps most people hated. We had like Vertigo. We had for some people, Inferno, and then I'd say maybe like Anubis, maybe, or maybe people, they went into the Mirage if they were a bit cynical. So the problem is, it's like all everyone could agree upon is the map pool sucks, and these are the maps I want out. But even the maps are different because so many maps were considered kind of inferior. So luckily, Counter-Strike will always endure based on like the quality of the players. So even if people say Mirage is played out, tell you what, Zimu winning the clutch on the A site isn't played out. You know, like FaZe doing some god tier 29th round, well, there is no 29th round now except the overtime. Some late round call onto the B site that works with, you know, like Brokey getting a headshot. That will always entertain. But I do think if you want to have like the big brain, like that thing where the certain coaches didn't even watch demos, they just put it in a demo viewer where it was a 2D map with like circles. But that part's going to be ass. Like that will just be the circles going into the site and then the CT's backing off. So like I don't know how good that'll be, but I do still think, look, Counter-Strike can never really be killed by the game dev. Like the players, there's so much skill expression in. I never worry too much.
And I agree. I agree that the map pool right now is kind of iffy. That to the point where it's just not that interesting. I mean, if you compare it too much with the past, like as we're saying, like if Cash and Cobblestone and Train and all these maps were in the pool, you kind of look at it and you're like, meh, you know, it's like it's not too exciting. But what I loved about the recent Anubis pickup is that actually it was completely community made and there was very little interference coming from Valve. I was hoping that they're going to go the same path moving forward. They did not, but maybe in the future, hopefully something like Cash comes back that was also like made by FM Pone and it wasn't really by Valve, I would say. So there are still glimpses of hope inside of me, but at the beginning of the interview, I said that I'm naive, and I maybe am. But I'm going to be naive and let's take it as a positive thing.
On brand.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw this. I actually saw a tweet, and now I'm going to be paraphrasing, so it stands to be corrected. But it was someone replying to a comment about the need for these more community maps, where they were saying, "Well, listen, we're all out of map building because we actually get no support from Valve, and like it's not worth our time." So I worry that that's also something that's happened here, where a lot of these map builders have kind of gone, "Well, what's the point? Like it's, you're going to bring Dust2 back." So I mean, I don't know. I feel that it's lovely that you're naive, STYKO, and it's great that you have this positive outlook, but I'm concerned that we're not going to see that anytime soon, Thorin.
Shall I give you some rare positivity where I'll find a way in my brain to make it that we could actually make every map in the current pool really good? Because it's actually something Moses suggested years ago on a podcast. And listen, a lot of times, Moses it's the feeling Moses gives you. He's a very amiable character. He's great to laugh with. A lot of times he says stuff, there's not always that much substance there. But every now and then he hits on a moment of lucidity and says something straight fire. No one even paid any attention. He actually said what I think is the most genius concept I've ever heard for the map pool in Counter-Strike. He said, when you have a map that people think is brilliant, like an Inferno or a train, don't ever take the map out. If you want to keep the scene fresh, why not do things like keep the map, but pick one bomb site and alter the setup of the site? Maybe like the boxes are different on the B site of Inferno. Maybe you put the bomb spot in a slightly different area. And the idea is this tweak would completely make the whole scene have to reevaluate the map, relearn the things, change some of the smoke line. These things, I actually think that's an amazing concept, because you could imagine if you had a dedicated team that was halfway between casual developer and people who follow the pro scene, it would just require small tweaks. You could change the box, you could open up an op line of sight or something. I think this would be the future of map design, in my opinion, because the problem at the moment, as far as I know, I've talked to some of the people who've made the maps, is every one of them's casual. Even FM Porn, who made Cash, he interacts more because he actually was working with a pro player in Volcano when he reworked it for CSGO. But even he's not a guy who's watching every match and trying to figure out what are they doing and stuff. So I feel like this would be a really interesting way to stimulate the pool and to mean that a map can't become stale. Because I think part of what becomes stale is once you find something too effective as a pro and you can just rely on it every time, and there's not really a great counter. I mean, the obvious example on Inferno is everyone eventually just learned the meta of all the utility on Banana, and it just meant the first 35 seconds was just throw all the utility, but you have to do it because it's the correct handshake play to make. But that's not really great for a fan, and even for a pro, it's this is just going through the motions every single time.
We're going all the way back to the beginning now, but it is something that all the conversation online about this, I don't think people realize, and this is my opinion, but it's something that I kind of have seen over the years. I don't think the devs actually care about top level competitive play. I think that their main focus is how do I get more and more noobs into my game to keep playing, to come back every night. They don't give a shit if the pros don't like it, because at the end of the day, if they've got 100,000 more kids jumping on to play Counter-Strike, that's actually what their goal is.
Sure.
So does it even matter how we feel about all of this? As far as they're concerned, if more people are going to come play because Dust2's in the mix, that's actually what matters.
I mean, to be fair, this is the greatest spin bot map of all time. You boot up in that T-spawn, you hear the guy in Russian speak, and then he starts spinning and it goes up. You don't see that on Overpass, STYKO. That's a thinking man's map, mate.
It's beautiful when you get a spin butter in Dust2 because the game is over so quickly.
It is.
They can get kills they can get kills within 3 seconds of the spawn, and this is why Dust2 is greatest map of the Counter-Strike. But also, I will double down on the positivity a little bit, and I will say that the visibility issue finally is for a map that comes into the map pool is not a problem, because we had Ancient, which famously had visibility issues until basically now, and then there was Anubis, which was also a little problematic in certain areas when it comes to lightning and blending the models in the background. So right now, Dust2, I didn't get to play it great bunch because I just came back from ESL Melbourne and we were still playing on the old patch, and so I still have to give it a try. But I think visibility on Dust2 is generally much more improved and very easy to see. I don't know how performance is, for example, because right now you were talking about bringing those 1,000 kids and back into the play. They're not going to play a map where they're going to lag like Ancient. The people are having FPS troubles all the time. I don't know how Dust2 is, but I'm going to go on a limb and say that probably it's going to be greatly optimized, because it's just not much going on the map comparatively to Ancient, where there's water everywhere and there are birds chirping around you and there's candles everywhere, so it's kind of nice.
I love the idea of birds chirping also taxes your system.
Dude, it's
true though. I think it is true probably.
Yeah, it's just what I'm saying is that it's pretty easy to look at, and it might be a little bit nicer to play at it.
So now let's have a little bit of fun here. STYKO, if you could choose what map, if it wasn't Dust2, which map would you have brought back and why?
Oh, hi. That's a great question. I'm gonna go for a train, and this is, maybe in CS:GO the answer would be actually Cobblestone, but then I saw the rework that Valve is trying to do, and I'm not a big fan of it. But for train, I have now a better answer as well is that I'm really interested how smokes would work on this map, if how they're going to spread in between trains, how is it going to be possible to like open them up with an HEs, if it's going to be like very viable. So train is something that I would be heavily interested in playing in CS2, and you know, I might poke some people around if they want to make like some kind of port that's just for the public server. I just want to play it out because it definitely sounds like an interesting idea. Also, with the possibility of now pretty much opening the skybox across the map, it might be generally much easier to execute sites like B side, where you don't need to stand in one position and then just find a narrow gap and then suddenly use it to smoke something perfectly. You can actually run fakes a little bit better. All these things kind of come into play, where I think Train could be much better competitively suited map, even compared to Dust2.
Before we get into Thorin's answer, now you mentioned that you were obviously at ESL Challenger in Melbourne, so I'm curious, spill the tea. What were some of the players' feelings about Dust2 coming into the mix? Was there any opinion on it, or was it just business as usual?
It was just business as usual, but I know the update in Australian time hit basically in the morning, and we were just minutes away from playing our opening game, and update came, and we were like talking about the game and preparation against our opening match, and someone pulled up the phone and they were like, oh, there's update, and there's actually Dust2 coming in, and we dropped everything. We just started to talk about map pool, and we forgot that the game
Dude,
is
imagine if your best map had actually been Overpass and you'd like prepped all the strats on it.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
No, half of the team is was actually happy with Overpass being gone, so I'm all right with the change, as I said. But it was generally a hype. But I think it was not that Dust2 is coming back; it's that the map will actually changed after so many years. We are so happy about it. So anything new that is kind of freshening up our day-to-day lives, I would say it's a positive for us.
Something new to learn, right? Like you can just change up strats, gives you like a fresh take on it. I mean, Thorin, I asked that question, but I'll swap it around for you. If you could have removed a map, which would it have been, and why would it have been Vertigo?
That's like, are you just trying to have like a Pavlovian spot? Vertigo instantly. Vertigo. It's always Vertigo. I've always said this, by the way, and I think this raises it's one of my analytical principles that I like to apply when I talk about things at the map pool, right? It can't just be my own bias. So what I always say is this. Pick any map you don't like in Counter-Strike. I'm the historian. I'll probably give you 20 classic bangers on that map. Great games, great matchups. Now try and think of these following, right? Tell me your top 5 Vertigo games you ever saw, and then tell me which your favorite matchups of teams are. It doesn't exist. Like, if anyone doesn't know, like, the best Vertigo game is just like a bad... The joke is it's like Team Spirit against FaZe, where two teams don't play the map. It's like a bad Vertigo game that just goes down to the wire because no one knows all the cynical angles, and no one just like bangs your head off every time on A ramp, and so you actually get a chance to win a round. So I think for me, Vertigo was just the obvious one. I've always said it's not Counter-Strike. Like, the joke is, this is where the Valve devs really don't understand their own game. They took out Overpass, a game with massive amounts of distance, but also rotations in the middle, which has allowed a lot of tactical play in the game. And they didn't put back in Train, probably the ultimate flank map, a map that can be, you can flip the dynamic of which side it is based on how good the team is. These are the things we love about Counter-Strike. Vertigo really is just like a site hold simulator. You just sit in the site waiting to be rushed and shoot. It's like some sort of fucked up retake simulator mod. So I've never understood why that map was in there. And also, I will just say, this is why there's different lenses to watch the game on. Like, for example, when I explain things, I use like analogies of people with dump truck asses. STYKO over here just like analyzes the game and like, oh, maybe the lineups, and I think actually, like, you know, the visibility. I wasn't even thinking about that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. What we didn't speak about it, by the way, is that Valve is actually in the past half a year or so trying to like change up the spawn points, and on Dust2 this is huge topic, because it can suddenly make or break your game plan, because suddenly you're getting no long spawns ever on T side, and you cannot even contest it, while sometimes you're just going to have those spawns, and it even evolves in the fact that you were supposed to probably eco that round, but since you had a great long spawn, you might actually force buy, contest long, and then suddenly try to exit the round somehow through execution or something. So it is really RNG heavy when it comes to spawn points. And what they did on other maps is they removed a lot of spawn points to make it more consistent both on T and CT side. So for CT side on Dust2 there were originally 5 spawn points anyway, but on T side it was something ludicrous like 20 spawn points, and you never know which one you get. So I hope they're gonna kind of stabilize it in CS2 as well, where it's not going to be always a long spawn, but it's also not going to be a B rush spawn all the time. But right now, I believe I saw some Face It demos where people, because I didn't play the map, so I just pushed Face It, and I think people are spawning all over the place. So I think there's still a lot of spawn points, and I think this should be something that they should look towards, because I'm not a big fan of it. This RNG aspect, not that great.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of that either, and I work in games where RNG plays a big role, and so I kind of know that it can really mess stuff up. And then it becomes a situation where skill is not coming into play. It starts becoming a little bit of luck as well, Thorin, which is always messy.
I mean, here's the thing. I like luck in the sense that, like, if you allow a lot of skill expression, brilliant players will get lucky. They'll do something like the simple no-scopes or something. But yeah, as STYKO points out, if people don't know, like, one of the things, the best example, actually, of where spawn point stuff and luck like that goes way too far is actually in CS 1.6. A lot of fans won't know this because it was never talked about in the casual scene. But in Pro CS in 1.6, Nuke was ridiculous, because if your player, who was the aggressive entry player, like Gux in Fnatic, got the aggressive spawn on T side of Nuke, he could get to the ramp room before the ramp room guy on CT side got there. So whereas that was supposed to be the CT lockdown map, and obviously the ramp player back in the day was actually often the AWPer, all of a sudden they could just win a T half, basically because the game just like rolled a 7 over and over again on the craps table, as it were. The problem with that is, like, I don't mind it if Gox goes there on 2 rounds and shoots someone in the head, but if he just gets an edge where essentially he has the map control because the other guy on CT can't run there in time to the site. Like, a general principle back in the day, if people don't know, is CT should probably spawn with map control. It's their map, they're protecting it. So I do think, like, RNG, it can exist a little bit. You do want there to be some dynamic to the game. I mean, maybe I just want all the higher seeds to win every single game, but I'm jaded and bitter and old, some would say. I would just say, you know, enlightened, educated, more of a sophisticated man who doesn't like such profane things. But that point is, yeah, the kids want a little bit of spice in there. Just the problem is, if you ever go to Nando's for them cheeky ones, you don't want too much spice. You don't go for the very hot sauce. You stick with the medium, don't you? Pro tip for Nando's there also.
Yeah, there we go. We got food advice now as well. It's basically taking Maui's job. So, STYKO, I'm curious. We said about the Vertigo. Would that have been the map that you would have chosen to get rid of as well?
Hell yeah, get out.
He didn't even have anything positive. That's the case closed. I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen. He had nothing positive to even couch in, and he's STYKO, for fuck's sake.
It's
not
funny
a
that you
single
say it,
positive
but what you said, the hypothesis of naming a game that kind of sticks in my mind on Vertigo, it doesn't exist. Like, as you said, like, Face Spirit might be the only one, and for all the wrong reasons. It's because of its Face Permaban, or was at some point.
Dude, here's how we know it sucks. You almost actually won a map on the fucking Vitality at the last CSGO Major on Vertigo, and even you think it sucks. And that map, in theory, maybe even Loot Rise Seedwoo, you know.
It was completely bad. And only thing, again, I'm gonna be a little bit of inner STYKO myself, so I will find a positive. Only thing that I like about Vertigo, only thing, and this is completely bad, but you can die on this map at almost any part of the map. You can just
Why is that positive? Holy shit!
Why is that positive?
Okay.
It is.
I know.
Listen. It is positive because it kind of forces you. As if I was an anchor on B side, which I always was on Vertigo, it kind of always makes you play in a positions where whenever you're getting flashed and executed on, you kind of have to understand the map to perfection.
Oh, you can't blindly run backwards or something, right? I see what you mean.
Yeah,
right.
obviously there are little like things where they will keep you in the map, but sometimes you want to play on the edge of it because it creates an off angle for you. So it kind of increases the skill ceiling only ever slightly. Like, you don't even think about it. But as a pro player, it actually matters because there were like 3 or 4 positions on Vertigo B side where you actually want to play out of the boundaries on the edge of the map because it created like slight advantage because you see flashes coming in and therefore you can dodge them in the meantime. But this is very like technical aspect that I personally generally like it's always fun to see someone like suicide on the map where it's like high tense
in a video game, of course. Yeah, keep going.
Of course, that's what I mean.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, you Sam, you told me I can say everything on the podcast.
Yeah, it's all good.
I have no
you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
So this is the only thing that is kind of like I don't see it on any other map. It's unique. I like it.
I think my favorite part about this is when you started, you were so positive and you were very careful about what you were saying. And it took us less than an hour to get, there was a little bit of a troll inside. Yeah, the troll was there. It came out. You tried to make it a positive, but everything that you said there was exactly what we've been waiting for. Yeah, it was slowly just coming out. So I mean, here's where we're at. Dust2 is in, and it's like the powdered eggs I mentioned at the beginning. There's absolutely nothing we can do. We're just gonna have to watch this play out and eat it. That's where we're stuck, Thorin.
Yeah, literally. I mean, one, we've blown any chance of Cheerios sponsorship for this particular show, so that's out the window immediately. So, yeah, at this point in time, like, I think the only side of the way you can spin this as a positive, like I say, is like, I just think, for example, I'll tell you one last factor. People have noticed in CS2, the AWPs aren't as powerful, they're not as dominant players. I could see this being a map where that brings that back. Like, that's obviously a player that can always dig you out of a hole on a map like this on either side, potentially. So, there are some positives. The main issue for me is, I actually think, like I say, it just compounds other problems with the map pool or other problems with the game. So I guess, again, if you want to do a counterintuitive way to flip that as a narrative, it's just accelerationism. If you just make it worse and worse and worse and worse conditions in CS, eventually Valve has to do something. Maybe we'll just think of it that way.
That's a weird way to end it, but there you go. STYKO, for you, I mean, from the conversations we've had, you seem more interested in the addition of Dust2 than most. There hasn't been these massive sort of, I hate this is terrible. You've kind of gone, oh, well, this will be interesting for us.
You know, this is how I am. I'm open-minded to these changes because I love the game when it changes, and then it's so rare in Counter-Strike that I almost celebrate all these little updates and changes when I can. But generally, I'm happy, and this is just because I love to theory craft, and I now have a new playground to theory craft on, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to find out some meta-changing smokes, because this is always what I'm looking for in my free time. I'm just a nerd, so leave me.
Just subscribe to STYKO's YouTube channel. He'll have a video coming out soon.
Thank you.
Definitely do that. I've actually been watching some of it. It looks really sick, and I think I'll be curious to see what you think about Dust2. And now we're going to leave it up to you. You can flame Dust2 in the comments. There we go. It's all yours.